you find it tickles your brain to look at the creative maze, then connect with Satorid afterwards for sure to go through it.
Yeah, sometime this week I'll lay out a little bit of, I guess, the beginning of the choose your own adventure. Oh no, I think it's like maybe self-guided tour of the casinos. I don't know. Okay. Oh, Bianca, you were gonna say something?
No. I just say it sounds good.
Letty, hey, welcome.
Hello, everyone. I think I missed the whole thing because we were talking here from an hour ago. Is that right?
Kind of, yeah. We I was ranting and raving for the beginning. And then now,
that's right. Because Nick asked, and when I checked with the with my mobile account, you couldn't see the hours the time when you are logged with the mobile. So you don't check. You have the link, and it doesn't show with the time. So I just saw you have replied to me, but I couldn't check the time. But I see you are like planning to have a guide tour for the game.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I was going around, and there's this one game, or it's what's it called? I forgot. But there's like this quiz to pick where are you politically on like the factions of crypto. And there's this other thing that I was experimenting with is like choose your own. It's like choose your own adventure, but it's to help develop the story. So you buy like an NFT to be the producer, and you vote on like which direction you want the story to go and all this kind of stuff. And so they have a real simple prototype where they have the story, and then they have a section where you can pick what door to go through. And so I was thinking to begin to build the NFT Self-Discover Game. We do it as like a self-discovery of the Casinos library, and we have the three choices of process, energy, and creative flow. And so then you kind of choose, okay, I'm gonna go through the process, and then maybe we have the flower, and we go through the flower, and then I'm assuming now with the creative, how we're doing the research and what Jean was saying about that kind of helps connect the dots between like the crypto and then what we're doing on the creative side of like how we're thinking about NFTs, how we're thinking about community, how we're thinking about the psychology, how we're thinking about these extra layers, so that like, you know, that this library becomes living and warm and alive, and not just this place where we.
Yeah, it sounds really cool. Like if we just manage to connect the three dots, like the creative flows, you said the research and the what is the other flow, the three
process,
like workflows, creation, and the processes, it will be super cool because we have like this coherence within the group. And how do you see this? Like if you are given the imagine this is a game, and we have been talking about all these things like the integral theory, all the archetypes, and all these deep psychology things. Would you be able to self-select your role within the top 5 roles? The shaman. Do you think that we can just maybe put an intro, like the introduction game, and we explain each role? Would you think everyone would be able to self-select it? The personal archetype. For myself, I speak to myself, and I would be able to do that, but maybe we need like thinking about this.
Yeah, I think that would be cool for like the next stage of like it's like the group dynamics, because I see Jolly's Stargate, but we put the rows there, and you kind of like spin it, and then it has a role, and you could kind of explore it if you want to, or you could pick it, or you could like code it in.
Okay. So it's like an adventure in itself. Like picking the role can be just random, or you can do it like I choose to be like the Weaver today, but it can be random.
Yeah.
And it would be possible to link one adventure, so the things you did last week, if you with a mind map maybe.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
And so like that's why I want to do that mind map, because I could do like my part of like the shaman. So like if you pick the shaman, then you're gonna have like, you know, the disembodied poetics, and you're gonna have like all these kind of like detachment kind of stuff. And why is like important to kind of be like you know, go with being detached, but the deeper part of it is the thinking but out thinking, that kind of doing and like gut of you're confident in what you're doing and you don't know why exactly, but you just feel this way and you're gonna go with that. And that's like the shaman's, like you don't always look to the shaman, but when shit hits the fan, the person that everybody looks to, that's the shaman.
Yeah, that they could be anyway. Like,
yeah.
You never expect that to happen, maybe.
Yeah.
But it was that way.
Yeah. And then I think too, what we learned is like it's all relative too, because it's like relative to whoever we think the group thinks is the expert on like that particular problem.
Yeah, and then that would be like energetic connections as well. So maybe it's like what happens is really what is representative of what is the energies of the group that day, or for that specific research topic. Or so you could, maybe it's like great because we can solve things that we cannot see right now how to do it. Yeah.
Just earlier, Jean, when we were talking about like how to go through like the sealants thing. And they asked like, "Oh, would you like it more like step by step or more kind of like creative?" And he's like, "Oh, it just depends on the day," and that's true too. Like sometimes you are more on task and you're more focused, and sometimes you're kind of I'm kind of loose. I'm like ready for anything, which is
true. Cool. So Nick, how do you see this like in terms of design? So we can just have this for the self-discovery game, or you see this like something bigger for the library as well?
To be honest, based on what I heard today, I see the library as like having its own app. And within that app, there's this like call to action basically that leads them to the self-discovery game, and then it will be just like what Satorid described, like some sort of like interface that people can interact with, so that they can get guided through it. But I also think like, and I've been saying this for a couple weeks now, like I really think that we should start it off in the Omega onboarding, so we can start like testing what that's like. You know, when in the onboarding, imagine if we show them the descriptions of the role and we say like what seems like most like your, or we just maybe we ask better questions other than just like what energizes you, what doesn't energize you, or like, and we can start just utilizing like dog fooding the game now, so that progress is being made and we're actually working towards like, you know, having the library.
And like we don't lose the information we are just collecting, because we have many things, but it's not like a stable repository for this. And maybe it's like, okay, if we have the container that will be the interface to the library, we can do that and have this in production for all the people that come in.
So maybe what I was gonna already like redesign the onboarding anyway, so it will still capture the same information, but the interface will be much less chaotic and easier, more user friendly. So maybe what I'll do, what I'll focus on is like designing the user interface. I'll get feedback from you guys. I'll work in the NFT game as well based on what Satorid described and check in with Satorid, and then we can get to coding, because Streamer D said that he's got experience coding this stuff all the time. Like that's basically what he does. So then we'll have like an actual library interface, and then so it'll be easier as well for curators to add information, like just instead of sending them like the Google Sheets, the Google Docs template, which can be like not as user friendly. Maybe they can just like upload their curations there and then. We obviously won't have a reward system yet because that's still in the research phase, but at least there's like an interface that people are like already using.
Yeah, sounds great, because it's like doing both things at the same time, and we can collect things inside the library, but at the same time we have this kind of game which is incentivizing as well people to come here. So maybe we can have the rewards like going forward. It's like, okay, we can just measure things as they are happening, so we can collect those insights as well. Because we have some funding already, so we do something out as well.
Like, we got the funding. I'm sure we should, like, show something. Be like, hey guys, we're doing stuff, we swear. No, we are doing stuff. It's just hard to show, like, if everything, all the information it's all in the call recordings, right?
Yes.
It's not somewhere accessible unless you spend like hours on YouTube watching the recordings.
And it's kind of messy because so many things, like we have so many concepts going at the same time.
So many.
We have been in calls for a year and we just like, okay, go, this is easy, but I see from external.
On that point, I do plan on, I think this week I'll have a video on concepts of Concealance Library. Because there's this one clip where I think it was actually Streamer D asked about the Concealance Library, and Steph gives an answer, and then like I think from there I want to like put in everybody's kind of like recent thoughts on it, and so there'll be a nice little video about like the broad themes of what's going on, and I think too for the videos too, like. I have that in one of the shared Google Docs, but maybe in the dynamic energy, we start to like curate those videos in a sense. So then we have like that. I think that's what you broadly put like as a placeholder for the was it transmedia part?
Yeah, we can do a lot of stuff that really kind of gives some insight to people in different multimedia, but also like, hey, dive into like project, like what became, how they evolved. And what I feel also, they're a bit like this distillery, like maybe each flow or a couple of, like community gatherings. And so far, I could say making a UI would give, hey, like, what's the idea is about, like a good start. And like, if there are like lots of concepts, that's so far what I did on my personal website, like impact projects, artworks, still categorized like that. And for each, it's like some websites started, one is just on Miro stage, some started with Twitter and Discord native, like before different, maybe one is just was GitHub and then developed, like that kind of diversity, because, we don't have to struggle like which tool or something, then every dimension that joins bring their own taste, like, and that could be also and they all, like, I see them as like legit tasks. And on research phase, I really like this notion of taking things intersectional and connected, and so if they would show like, hey, we are connected to these ideas, and like each platform making some harmony, I think that's like Web3 is about, like, hey, every idea got their value and they also do something collective, like. And yeah, I really love that. By the way, there's one other project they are doing similar, but not with this philosophy, but card gaming, the guild cast. So like any project joins there and introduce them as guild. For example, on Demoverse project, I made like Peace Guild join there, and they kind of have this role system and with Discord bots and NFTs integrated, and I kind of like it, but they didn't make it to the end now, like, yet. they're also researching and generative arts possible from after each session or whatever. Like always, we can accept any data into that, and it can generate some visuals or music too. Coding is also possible for music. That would be our own data that generates that song, like a DNA of some sort.
Yeah.
But whatever we take, as value, doesn't matter. Whatever we care, kind of.
Yeah, that goes into like what I was saying about as we do this research, like the raw clay, and it becomes like the books that we put in the library, but also becomes that creative stuff that we use and experiment with. And then like we do like research on it, like what you were saying about the song. There's even like artwork too that's like based off of, one of my friends was doing that. Like you could send them like phrases or whatever, and then he puts them into like this weird algorithm, and it comes like this like symbol and shapes. Anyways, yeah. Letty, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I'm thinking about this. I see like the interconnection here, and we are exploring the value of novelty and transdisciplinarity, and I see like what you are saying both. It's like we have these new insights about what people care about, and they are like really interested in doing. So we have all this warm data in the NFTs or in the roles per se, and we're creating at the same time. So I see like the connections between what energizes people and are just coding into the library, and this new novelty and transmedia thing. So we have like the data itself there, so we can just create this new art itself with what are the energies there. So I see like this art generating within the game and the library, right? And that's the novelty of this.
Yeah. I'm glad. There's something that you said that brought me to Nora Benson and what you shared, and I watched a video of her talking about it.
Because in some ways, this pattern of how things are combining in gradual, unseen ways is a really important piece. And in fact, life is actually happening in that way. So what would it look like if we had a word that was talking about this gradual, unseen coalescence, but it was pointing more toward vitality than toward the danger of insidiousness? Now, just to be very clear, I'm pretty sure that in my thinking here, this aphanipoesis word could be a way to describe this. And so a possible definition of aphanipoesis could be an unseen coalescence toward vitality. But back to the word, because a word's not a word till you can taste it. We see this root aphanis in words like fantasy, in phantom, in diaphanous. That's a beautiful word. And of course, poesis from Maturana and Varela's work. And so somehow what we're talking about is that it's possible to have a kind of diaphanous poetry be a prerequisite of vitality. So that makes me feel good. I like that idea that there's diaphanous poetry is necessary. An unseen coalescence toward vitality.
And so then she goes in and she says, inventing a new word and all this kind of stuff. And she gets to this part where she's like, I kind of like it because in order for you to understand this, you need to, I think she said diaphanous poetics. And I start laughing because I'm like, that's exactly what I mean by disembodied poetics. I'm like, oh, I'm glad I got Nora Benson of all people.
I think the example she gets is like, if you are not in that context, or if you don't know that piece of information, it's like you don't have the context to, or the coherence to know what is going to emerge. So it's like if you are not within the words or the poetics or like what is exactly happening, you don't know that. It's like you cannot make the connections. But if you have the context and the coherence, you can make like these new connections. Yeah. Maybe it's like, that's the value of what we are doing. It's not per se like creating everything, but it's have this kind of new meaning for ourselves and the connections we're trying to make. Yeah.
Yes.
Love it.
And just what you were saying, it's like the poetics or even the way we're talking about things is like that little membrane that helps us to like be able to be in this space where, I mean, that's what Dogadas was talking about. He's like, commons is fundamental to reality. You know, like there's all sorts of different ways to explain these morphogenetic fields. Even back in the day, Plato with Socrates, when Socrates has this lesson about math, and he says, you know, do you teach the kid or do the kid recalls it? Because, you know, he mimics you up until a point, and then one day now he could say 10 plus 7 is 20, 20 plus 20 is 40, and he's able to use that knowledge to retrieve it. And so this goes into the deeper philosophical thing about the commons and creating the new. That's why I'm about the mandala narrative. It's not about like one narrative to rule them all, but it's about like this emerging narrative that's happening. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like to be able to do that, we need maybe this new way of thinking about things and curating the connections. Yeah. So the poetics would be like explaining how to, what you're saying a little bit, like creating these new commons for the commons, right? Yeah. And we need like this new vocabulary to do that, or the connections, or like everything in itself, like to be integral. Yeah. So I love if we can do that. It's like very very relevant to what Omega is as well, or it's a branch of what we were thinking, because the ethics is very important, and all the whole knowledge or the interconnections, or what Wilson said, like consilience around all the disciplines, which is like, as Bateson said, like we need like a new way of epistemology, and maybe we are trying to create a little bit of that, right? Yeah. Saying all the disciplines have value, but we need to make those connections like relevant. If they are not, we cannot create nothing really new or useful. It's like maybe more chaos and not value per itself. But I love we can integrate this because it's not an easy task, but it sounds exciting, right? So
it's like there is a cycle. Like sometimes we think stuff and then build them, and also sometimes we build stuff to think even more clearly, you know, not only saying like, hey, it's an experiment and stuff, but gives like a mirror board is also kind of something using just that way, like, hey, just get a seat, you know, or just those connections, yes, but they make things easier to tell too. Like, that's why, like, for a lot of stuff, like where ideas, people, projects, where they were connected, those connection parts is quite interesting. Like Satorid mentioned before, like last time, some calls ago, like how we, like that day, like, hey, there was no toilet paper, but then there was that soup cup, and which was easier to draw something. I just used that, and that's like life, and it brings people together in a lot of meaningful ways. And what matters kind of how they're all building up something. It's like always like, hey, you are connecting a lot of things around, but like everybody is like that at the end. And when we see that, hey, it's like something like air, you know, like on top, with these calls we are kind of like connecting with clouds, you know, like that's also part of that cycle, actually, just existence of those that became visible from sessions to sessions, or from all those were submitted, committed.
The container in itself is important because we'll be trying to apply very different methodologies or moments or contexts. So I see what you are, I hear you say, like having this is like a kind of experiment in itself, and then we can just co-create with different people and different stages of being or cycles. There would be like new data and new things to be relevant and to have value, right? So if we can manage to co-create and to lay out, right, the terrain or only the words for the library or the container, that would be like in itself a new way of creating things, and in itself it has so much value.
So contexts are like themselves are something really with the body, like integrated, but like giving something to work on, some surface. They are given chance to show how things are integrating. Like, hey, you got some idea, like some decentralization in time as well, because you don't have to first finish something and then move to the other, but you build multiple stuff asynchronously. Some go there sometime, some like part-time in like a lot. And then they move, and with people like Imagine for All, like that way. And what comes out would be like, hey, what context bring them together or make use of these tools? Like there are communication tools out there, like making these libraries out there. But how do you bring it together? For example, are you doing it like with people, like curating with community, like not even content, but how the site gonna look like, for example, as individuals or communities? It's just sometimes it's so decided that platforms just decide, like we're gonna do good to this and that. And when I really just wanted to say this, like whenever I think, I'm just saying, like I wouldn't want to even choose, like it's gonna be collection of like all of them. Why not?
Yeah. And this is kind of like my future vision of what I'm calling the narrative mandala, which is like this mosaic. It's like represented as a mosaic, and over time you kind of like color it in, which is like different aspects of what we're all like working on. And I think too, you can find out, as we're kind of finding out energy levels, I think later we find out what's like meaningful to us, and then what are some like insightful connected things that we learn along the way, and then we can find out like where is like the energy and where is like the meaningfulness like there, and like what just broadly, if you had like this big picture of like where the energy is like focused on, like where's the meaningfulness or like the creative stuff, and not just like arbitrarily where all the money's going towards, but like also to where's like the interest and the curiosity and other things like that. I think would be interesting.
Yeah, that is super interesting because it's like in the way we do things, they emerge at the same time. So it's like a super generative in itself. Yeah. Because we are collecting and we are just recreating our own energies, and this is like transmedia as well. So it has all the components we have been speaking about. And the challenge, just to say it in a way, the challenge is to have this container be like open and flexible enough to capture all this, but at the same time like having this kind of coherence for ourselves to be able to catch all these things. Well, it's not an easy task either way. So but I see like the game you were mentioning is like only have these political categories and you emerge like this avatar, but I see like we are using the avatar, so it's like very different to that, and we will be capturing like different values. So I'm saying this like I understand the game, the other game, but I see like we ourselves are creating something different. And I like that because the avatar will be capturing very different information for the energies and the library itself will be doing that. So great. If we just can manage to have the first iteration for this, as Nick said, we can have this onboarding card at the beginning, and we just can, because I feel like Omega needs some kind of like a stable repository, and this could be like the ideal thing. So we have this, we start everything from this point now, and we have all all collecting. Just I was like super trying to onboard my energies on the Figma board. For me, it was like super difficult. So I couldn't, and it was the usability of it. So I was trying and I say, oh my God, I have to write down all this. And it was like, there's something missing. And maybe this is what we are missing.
And even me too, I'm for the project, but like my Figma board on that side with the little sticky notes are not updated or all of my thoughts. And it was kind of fun. It's kind of funny because then I started to do my little maze, the creative maze that I started to do, and then I figured out as I was doing it, I found out the way I like to use the board, and I started to assemble it as like how I use it, and then I'm like, oh, I'm just curious how other people might do it, like if there's like no context. So then that's when I messed it up. And I'm like, hey, everybody come here. I started putting stickers because I just kind of wanted to see if anybody would like just like start to use it. I think what we're getting to is like, I think the game is to help us like self-sort ourselves, and I think too, like even some days we might feel a little creative, and some days we might feel a little bit task oriented, and I wonder if like we'll start using it that way. Like,
and that's like kind of the adventures emerging, because maybe there is some adventure which is like super structured and you go there and it's super clear what you have to do. It's creating about X, Y, Z, and the other is super messy, as you say, and it's like the shaman way of Weaver, which is trying to make sense of everything, and there's another different use of the board, right, or your energies, and we discover that. And I see like different narratives, so it would be perfect. And asynchronously, this work wonders, because if you feel like you want something messy, you go to the creating thing that has no sense at all. And if you feel like, oh no, I want to do serious work, I go to the creation library of the economics part of the Crypto Flower, and then I will create like books, and that's my day today. And it has the same value for ourselves.
And I think too, what Gene's starting with the energy thing, it's like kind of like in the middle where we're trying to make those connections that like the same kind of energy and process that like someone creative is doing, and it seems kind of chaotic and messy, is the same like creative process that when you're creating that software, it's like comes in different forms, but the energy is the same. And what Streamer D was saying, when he feels like, this intrinsic motivation where he likes the idea, it's a way different process of working than if it's like a task that's assigned to him. Right?
Yeah. And it's like, as Streamer was saying, it's like, is the work in itself what is happening? It's happening. It's a process as well. Streamer, please, can you, I don't know if you're in the Omega Discord, but if you can share the philosophy NFT game you mentioned, that would be great as a link, or because we can just maybe
that was the guild, right? You were saying guild?
It's the guild.
Guildcast Metaverse, a friend from Dallas, developing something, also developing this time, also evaluating Getter Town. Like it's super cool. Like you got some office space, like some you can bring like some boards. There is also like chat like this. You can follow someone, for example, there are like portals, and you can see them first, like on Discord, and then you click them, you go to their location, but you travel all the way. Really fun. There was also a dog that you can just click and it follows you.
We'll have like our mind maps and because we are working with the mandalas, and so our visuals will be like super nice, beautiful, and I see like all the research and the topics emerging as a mind map mandala, which is even like for ourselves, and Omega is something more representative even. So, but I see like the same kind of narrative in our visuals, like emerging.
We can like when I joined TEC and discovered like first Gravity and then Omega, it's like, hey, I didn't know what they mean. Like in general onboarding, I heard something Gravity really like resonated and they were welcoming. And how I started was like just Satorid mentioned, like, hey, there was this onboarding going on, but I was going and like, hey, talking about not so resonating, maybe just very specific question that's just that was where gravity was specialized. Yeah, that was like and I just want to say, like, hey, if we can visualize which, like, more topical or which part to focus, give the focus, they want to go to focus, on that day. Like, it could be anything, and with different means we can embed those boards to the site, or an app. They can pin new stuff. And what I also like is these times, hey, there is one context switch that people use in, like, hey, I'm on this time zone, let's meet on this time zone. Like, instead of that, I was thinking we start also developing a map, like, time zone based. You just see your friends, like, time difference, but not only time, but also what's the difference in how cold, warm difference, like maybe the dimension. Sometimes, many times, people are assuming someone from, for example, Europe, maybe they're in Africa, nobody knows, but also we don't know about realities of others a bit, and like, just basic stuff, like, is it, like, colder than me, warmer than I do? Like, hey, it's just a feeling.
A little bit aware of this kind of assumptions here in Omega, because we have been trying to adopt, like, an integral view of things, and we specifically have been working on our workflows, so trying to figure out how we ourselves as a group and individuals are working towards getting things done and not done, like really valuing things that are not so visible to people. So I think, this is like something we are trying to even build capabilities for everyone to have this kind of complexity, tolerance, and seeing, like, it's there are so many factors in our work. So
I like that you brought that up, because even the last call, it was you two that brought it up about your energy was low because of the food, and like those little details, like like even like now it's like the morning, and we'll probably wrap up because I need to go and get breakfast. But like that little stuff, and just that's why I kind of I like the morning. I'm a morning person. So
and it's like we have to be mindful about that as well, and really do what suits us best, and just follow our natural way of being sometimes, and not trying to over-engineer everything. Because I feel that can be like a talent sometimes. So great, guys, I need to jump, and super happy to continue talking on Wednesday and building.
Buildings,
and playing all this, because Satorid came to play, and we are ready to play.
I'll put up my initial thoughts on I'll make a space for it on the board about what I see, the three little options, and then I'll go further down on the storyline of it. So we have
the process, the three workflows, and we have the outline for the 5 roles, and that itself it's an explanation, right? We are building all the values for the flows, which are different, and there are different states of being and working and collaborating, or maybe just thinking about things, and then we have all the archetypes. Sounds great as a container.
Good. Okay, cool. We'll meet up. And Streamer D, have a good birthday, and then hit me up when you get back, and then we'll work on the game.
It's fun.
Yes, welcome to this game.
Cool.
Yeah.
See you guys later.
See you guys.
I'll